All right, gang, it's sexy. Let's do a little more progression here with first victories. Battle of Vimeiro. I'm waiting for somebody to correct me on how to say that. Somebody did it a year ago when I was test playing and stuff, but I can't remember how to pronounce this thing. I guess I could Google it, right? All right, so I, I guess, and of course, reading the designer's notes, they talk about, you know, just firing away is not the solution for the infantry in this game. You've got to actually get in there in assault positions if you want to take ground. And now that I have got these forces where the fight is, well, where they've closed and they're actually fighting, and it's like all the initial maneuvering into position is, I mean, once again, wasn't there, but getting your formations into their lines of departure for their assault or their attack to take whatever objectives you got, assigned to the attack, and how the defending lines reposture themselves or reorganize or change their formation or their deployment or whatever. That's all just, hey, you might have an artillery round here and there fire off. You know, you, you infantry maneuvering or probably try to avoid, large dust clouds of cavalry that they see, not trying to get into where that cavalry can just jump on them. And something that Jeff Wasevich mentioned to me about using, and it's funny because I'm an ex-cavalry scout from the Army, is using the cavalry to screen so that, especially with the artillery, because I've already lost a battery in this game. Actually, yeah, a French battery, because I didn't have anything to protect him, and almost lost another one in a fight, except for, fortunately for me, the Anglo-Ally formations didn't have an attack. They weren't in attack order, so they couldn't close on this. I mean, they couldn't get in there and assault. But I haven't had much use yet of the cavalry. I had one early reaction charge with the French, and the unit ended up taking a step loss, which was terrible. But you can't, your cavalry can't charge without attack orders. They can reaction charge, but they can't charge offensively. So haven't had that happen yet. Some of the infantry over here for the Anglo-Allies, let's see. These guys over here, if these guys are in attack mode, so if they're still in attack mode and they advance, they might hit this 3 hex. Well, okay, let me take that back. I'm playing the soldiers game rules, and it was suggested to me that continue, because I thought about jumping up, so we can see more of the meat and potatoes of the different rules experiences, as it was put to me. But for right now in the soldiers game, there's no 3 hex reaction charge for the cavalry. The enemy unit actually has to enter their zone of control before they can reaction charge. And I thought about this, and that's not going to be how that works. I'm sure that's not how that worked in real life. However, to help you learn the system, let's learn how a basic cavalry charge works, even though it may not be authentic, and then start to, as you progress through the rule systems, start to get more of the details of how it actually did work. So this is the easy method for cavalry charge, and that's probably why I really haven't had any yet. The one that I did do was using a 3 hex reaction range, which doesn't apply in the soldiers game. Kind of a test for me, so it just to see what it does. But I haven't really had any yet. Plus, it's not that you don't have the ton of cavalry in this fight that you did at like Waterloo or something like that. So, all right, so let's zoom in here. I want to talk a little bit about assaults. So I posted some pictures last night with a massive amount of French assaults up on the top flank up there, okay? And a lot more of that, like I say, depending on attack orders on this next turn, because now this turn's over, right? So the French, his attack order's gone, and his attack order's gone. His attack order's gone, because you remove him at the end of the turn, and this guy's attack order's gone, all right? So the French did their thing over, and they had attack orders on 2 divisions. So that meant both brigades and the divisions who were in command range, they were able to apply that one order, that one attack order to both brigades. All right, and it was de la Bourdais division and Loison's division. Okay, Loison's division really needed it because the British came up here on their right flank. They needed to turn and get in there and fight, and I needed them to assault in there to drive the Anglo allies out. Now, initially, there was a nice line right through here. As you can see, broken, shaken, fallen back. There's one up in the pile up there. He's now dead. He ended up with a rout, and then it was an elimination. Yeah, because routed units will automatically be eliminated. Okay, so he ended up destroyed. There's another infantry unit up there that was also destroyed completely because he was it was an SED unit that just had one step. So, but Loisan was able to turn and stunt, I think it's 3rd Brigade's attack orders here. 4th Brigade did not have attack orders. They closed, but they weren't able to assault. And I wish I would have thought that one out before I moved in there. All right. And now the French are shifting, which you can't see again. The French down here below have shifted over from this town here. They're shifting over here to protect this flank, right? And then you got a cavalry screening the right side down in here because of all these allies. I got to move that cavalry up there, or that, I guess those are Nassauians or whatever up in the top corner there. I got to move them still. All right, I forgot to do that. I'll fix that. Okay, so the French assault made some progress over in here, and they made a little in here, but then when the Anglo-Allies phase came up, they chased them out. Now, it's really cool, and I want to talk about assault because I think of in the Civil War when somebody would charge in and do a melee, they're getting up in there and they're hand-to-hand mixing it up with steel and whatnot like that. This system takes a different approach. Can infantry end up in a hand-to-hand fight? Well, in a sense, it is. It's just that when you read the rules, it's a different approach. And how is that approach? Okay, so you declare your assault. It's always best to declare the assault on the move and not when you're sitting adjacent to an enemy unit because you're going to take a morale penalty by starting your assault from adjacent. You have to be in attack orders in order to even start an assault. All right. And if you are in attack orders and you start your assault, you don't have to roll for a morale check to close. Okay. You're going to take fire if there's skirmishers, but you don't have to move from here to here and start the assault. That you don't have, there's no morale check because you're under attack orders. That means you've got you're on the move. You're told to, whether it's charge or not, or get in there and assault. Your momentum carries you up in there. That's the way I'm looking at it. I haven't read through all the designer notes, but that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. That the momentum of you charging forward or assaulting forward is carrying you up in there into the face of the enemy. Now, how does assault work? So, all right, once everybody's secure, are in there adjacent to the enemy, and you have your assaults marked, you might have multiple hexes assaulting one hex. And always remember when you're playing this rule system, if you do fire combat or your offensive or defensive fire from multiple hexes on one target, you get the results for both, and you have a little chart you can use to mark, what the first unit, what havoc he created, and then what the second unit, and the third, whatever, how many there are. And then when you go to resolve it, you do step losses first. Then you do the morale checks that are created, each one individually. All right, and you see what the total result is for morale checks, and then you execute your morale checks on the unit that's being affected. It sounds like it might be a little confusing, but it's not. It's really not. I've had a lot. I already had about 5 or 6 assaults that were multiple hexes assaulting one hex. It is really not that tough. Just read the rules. It's written there in the soldiers' rules. It's pretty simple, and just follow the guidelines with that. So you close. You have your assault marker on, which is one of these things, and your assault marker is pointed at the unit that you're assaulting. It has the arrow, so point it towards the stack you're assaulting. And then when the assault actually happens in the assault phase, so you're going to do all your movement for everybody first, and you're going to have your assaults marked. At the end, you have an assault phase. You have a charge phase and an assault phase. Charge phase for cavalry, which is kind of similar to an assault phase, only it's cavalry. And then you have the assault phase. You execute all the assaults. So you're going to have, right off the bat, the attacker's going to have to do a morale check to successfully pull off the assault, okay? And if the attacker's in a disrupted state and he fails his assault, he's going to go shaken, which means he's going to have to back out one hex. So he's not going to get an assault. If he's in a normal state where he's untouched, he'll go to disrupted. If he fails, he'll go to disrupted, And because he failed, he's not going to get what's called well-directed fire, which I'll explain to you here in just a second. Okay, so let's say that with one of these assaults right here, maybe this unit assault and this unit here, they both, the attacker and the defender, pass their morale check. They're both going to get a +2 to the offensive and defensive fire when in the next steps of the assault phase, which is after morale checks, you have an alterations phase where you're going to take your skirmishers, any skirmishers that away. When I say skirmishers for this, I mean these guys that are on top of the units, your skirmishers. Units that are in SED mode, which are like the full unit almost going into a skirmish mode, those don't get recalled back into the parent unit. They stay in SED mode, which is a benefit because it's a -2 when you're firing at them, -2 columns. All right. So we've gone through the morale checks. Everybody succeeded. All right. If you don't succeed on the morale check and you're still in there to do the assault because you're only disrupted, you're not going to get the well-directed fire bonus of +2. But we're going to say in this case here, they both got their +2s. So now you're going to go through fire combat. All right. And it's defensive and offensive fire. Now, please do not confuse these fires, even though you're going to execute them the same way. Don't confuse these with regular fire segment, which is a phase of its own, okay? Because the difference here is any morale status change you take in here in the assault phase is going to be 2 levels instead of 1. So if you're in a normal state and you take a morale hit and fail it, you're going to go disrupted right to shaken, which means you're going to have to move away 1 hex, okay? All right? So keep that in mind when you're doing the offensive and defensive fire. So the first thing will be the defensive fire by the defending unit. He'll use his fire strength unless he's got SED out or whatever. He's going to use the fire strength in his white box on the counter. Let me get a counter so you guys can see that. We'll take this one right here. So, no, that's a bad one. So here's a regular infantry unit. British one, okay? All right. And the white box is the line infantry's fire strength, okay? If the guy has skirmishers out, I'll take it back. We want to talk about it because there are no skirmishers when you're doing this. Okay, so he's going to use that 2 as his fire strength. And you have limits to how much you can fire out of a hex, all right? There's a chart, tells you how many can shoot out of a hex, how many strength points total, okay? So if this guy here was firing, let's say he passed his morale check as the attacker, he's gonna start with a 2, and then he's gonna get a +2 for well-directed fire because he passed his morale check during the assault phase. So now he's rolling, instead of on table 2, he's now rolling on table 4, okay? And the way that chart's laid out is up to that number. So you'll see, like, let's say column 5, all right? 7. If you roll a 7 or less, there's no effect. If you roll an 8 to 16, the opponent's got to take a morale check. And then so forth down the line. Then you see it starts to add morale -10, -15. Then you got 1M. That's a step loss with a morale check of -15 and so forth down the line. I haven't gotten too many of those. I think I've gotten one of those where a step loss was taken from the fire combat. All right, so you do fire from both sides. Now, the defender's going to fire first. He can only fire at 1 hex if there's multiple hexes assaulting him. So choose and of course, you need to be facing. They only fire into their frontal hexes, all right, which are the 2 hexes right in front of them. Unless they're in column, it's only 1 hex. But you'll retreat if you're in column anyhow. So he'll fire. Whatever damage he does to the unit he fires at, you apply that immediately, okay? So you're hoping that when you get these multiple hex assaults, that you drive one of them away before the other one happens, okay? Another thing, too, that's probably better to this game is and I don't know yet, I've only done it once, but maybe to assault in stacks, because you can have the firepower coming from both counters and you have a limit to your stacking points. You'll get the firepower coming out of both units in the stack, okay? But the morale check will only be done by the top unit. So keep that in mind. It'll affect the whole stack. So you do both your fires. If by chance the attacker drives the defender out, since it's an assault, one of the units will have to advance in there, into that hex, okay? And then when it's all done, anybody that's in a normal state that's still alive on the map has to go immediately to a disorder state. However, if you're already disordered, you don't flip it any farther. You just remain disordered, okay? And then that's how your assault works. So it's more of you're doing a fire combat thing. Now there are cases you'll go to what they call cold steel, and it depends on whether the defender's in a built-up area or a fort. Cavalry charges will have the cold steel stuff in there, so you'll have to do that. So really, you're doing this assault. You're surviving morale checks, and you're firing, and that's how you're determining the result in the assault. Okay, again, soldiers' rules. Once we move up to the next step, we'll get into a little more detail. Maybe there's I'm sure there's going to be differences on how this works, but that's pretty much how you do assaults. And reading Terry's notes in the designer's notes and stuff, that he explicitly says it in there. This is your infantry has to assault in order to drive these people off these objectives. And like I say, there's a hilltop right here. I think it's both of these hilltops that the French need to drive them off of that. Only problem is I'm dealing with this stuff over here too, and I got to screen them. So it's hopefully get 2 to 3 orders every turn, and I need to get at least 2. If I could, because I can, as long as these brigades stay in command range of their division leaders, I can use 2 orders to get 2 full divisions into attack mode. But boy, it'd be nice to get a third one, maybe get this cavalry doing its thing. Okay, get some charges in there, break up some of this stuff, but I'm starting to see, like I say, the meat and potatoes of this system by once these units start to close on each other. Thankfully, I appreciate the larger counters and then the smaller status counters on top. So you can easily distinguish what's underneath. You still got to pull the status counters off, right? But yeah, you might have at one time, you might have a skirmish marker, a status marker, and then an assault marker stacked on top of a unit, or a stack of 2 units, or a stack of 3 units if you have a leader in there. I'm not seeing that happening constantly. Most time it's just 2. Usually it's a skirmisher and it's a status marker. So, but look, gorgeous map, gorgeous counters. And last night when I sat down and started to play, and as I was closing in, I kind of got locked into what I was doing, and it takes a little time, but each little step gets easier and easier as I'm playing the system more and more and more. So I'm going to stick it out with the soldiers thing. BKK, he commented in YouTube about why I stopped using the bot, and he would like to see how the bot works. Well, don't worry, I'm going to do some more stuff, and I'll do some more of the bot play. And I'm hoping that by the time I get through all the stuff, you guys be sure and I saw you guys have the games in hand, because I'll tell you what. Somebody also asked me, how does this compare to ILAO? I don't know. I do not own the ILAO game I own the one from New England Simulations, and I actually had it out, was going to play it, and I was like, no, I can't. I realized it's Wellington's Victory, just called Winter's Victory. So, but eventually I'll get that out and play that too. But I got a lot to do with this one, plus some World War 85 stuff. I've never learned the rules to World War 85, so I'm working on that too at the same time. Plus I got some other little things up my sleeve that I hope eventually we'll be able to show you all down the road. But there you go, first Victories. We're into it now. The fighting's on, and the contact, you're pretty much going to stay in contact unless one side chases the other way. And then I'm going to see, like I say, you can only get so many orders. Think on this list, Wellington at the most can have 3, and Juneau at the most can have 3, but you got to roll some high die rolls to get that, okay? And you do that during your initiative, so depending on whether I can get all these things activated, I got to turn him around. All right. So there you go. Let's have it. We're playing Vimeiro, and by the way, we are 2/3 of the way through. Well, we're on the last turn of the 2/3 point. And the only reinforcements left to come in are going to be for the French, which is not a massive amount, 3 or 4 counters, but they'll come in and probably be able to help out with the situation over here, I think. Or will I need them to go over there? Don't know. All right, let's wrap it up, put this up on there so you all can see what's going on, and we'll shoot some more video here soon.